So I guess this is like a recording day for Rebecca here. One of the things that I've actually been very, very intentional about in the last few years in particular is trying to allow myself to just kind of work with my own rhythms and trust that when I want to create, I will create. And if I'm not up for creating, that's totally fine. I will be later. If it's time to rest, I can rest. I'm always going to get back up. I'm not going to just fall apart. Sometimes I'm on here and sometimes I'm not. It all depends on which way the wind blows. Anyways, I wanted to share with you guys the story of the time I got a security guard at the domestic abuse shelter I stayed at for 6 months. I got him removed from the position. I was not privy to his ultimate fate, so perhaps he was just moved to some other place where his sort of buffoonery would be less of an issue to deal with. So what had happened was, this was when I was at a domestic abuse shelter, and they had a security guard. They always had. I only ever knew of one who would be out around typically on the nights. There probably was more than one, but when I first got there, the security guard was like super inobtrusive. You would see him moving about the building. He moved about very quietly. If he saw you, he'd nod. He wasn't like rude or didn't act like you weren't there or anything, but he wasn't looking to engage with you either. He would be out on and around the grounds, at night, you felt like there was somebody who took the fact that you were living in a building full of people who were traumatized and essentially running for their lives in many cases, like that he was taking that seriously. Well, at some point, several months into my time there was a new security guard, and this man had an entirely different manner and approached his job entirely different. Whereas the other security guard had basically done his patrols in a way that you felt like he was trying to keep you safe. He saw it as his job to keep the building secure from, outside threats. Like, this guy seemed to feel that it was his job to patrol with the aim of making sure that all of the people who were staying there were following all of the rules to a T. So like as if his job was to enforce rules upon the residents, which obviously is a real shift in focus and does not cause people to feel more safe, especially people who are traumatized. And he was extremely rude. I had numerous women, particularly women of color, complain to me about their interactions with him. And he had this manner of moving about the building very, like he would fling doors open when he came out of the building, which may not seem like a really big issue. Like maybe he's just up and peppy, but you're talking about severely traumatized people here who that sort of thing. The other security guard moved about, like gently, like he would gently open the door because you don't know who's on the other side, right? And you're not looking to startle anyone. Like he literally was setting off people's panic attacks, with the manner in which he was moving about the building and the grounds, which is not helpful. This does not help people heal and move into a place where they can have good judgment and build new lives free from, violence and abuse. Like this is very contrary to what is appropriate. So as I mentioned, I had multiple women come and talk to me about this man. I had only run into him like when he flung the door open in my face and set off a very serious panic attack in the person I was with. But so I decided to check him out. And I took an opportunity when I saw he was getting on the elevator, because, where would people be hiding? In the elevator, of course. Thanks for keeping us safe, Mr. Security Dude. Anyways, I got on the elevator with him and I said to him, "How long have you been doing this?" And he very rudely said, doing what? And I was like, well, like security. Why do you ask? What do you mean, why do I ask? And I, at this point, Rebecca's sharp tongue is not being corralled as well as it might be on a good day. So I didn't go off on him, but I'm quite certain my response was, what do you mean, why do I ask? We live here. We feel unsafe because that's why we're here, because we're unsafe. So it would be very reasonable for me to want to know something about the person who is helping to patrol the building that I'm residing in. What do you mean? I was pissed. And I went down to the staff at the front desk and I told them that I was pissed. And he came down. He had this yokel howdy doody thing. What's going on here, everyone? Ooh. And I was like, you don't belong here, and I will Karen the fuck out of you. You are done. You're done. And just turned and walked off. Created a spectacle. See, that's the thing about me. You should be nice to me because Jesus took all of my shame away. So I have zero qualms about creating a scene. I was raised as the oldest of 9 children. People stared at us everywhere we went. I just learned to pretend I was invisible, right? So yeah. Be nice to me, especially in public. I will create a scene. So yeah, that's what I did. And then the next day I was sitting, it was late in the evening before curfew, but I was sitting out, in a darkened area, outside of a playground area. Nobody was out. I just wanted to be by myself and, do what I was doing. And he came over and told me that I was not allowed to sit there. Now, mind you, I had been in this place for 4 months at this point. I had sat there many times. And I said, well, I've done this many times. If that is the case, I would like you to go get staff to speak to me because I'm not engaging with you. And so that's what he did. He went and got staff and they came and explained to me, well, technically you're not supposed to go past that gate 6 feet away that you're sitting on the other side of, because it's a safety issue. Dude. Now, mind you, I had made a complaint to the head of the shelter after the first incident. I was like, if you really, I'm like, you know what? Fine. I will move. However, I would like to say once again, this man does not belong here, and I will make sure he is gone. Because if you don't expect me to believe that this rule is suddenly very important and needs to be enforced the day after, he didn't even have the good sense to wait a week, the day after I complained about him. So if you expect me to believe that, I would be so stupid, I would have forgotten what to do with food and died by now. I'm not stupid. This is ridiculous. And I promise you, you will be gone. And once again, I turned and stormed off. And honestly, I felt very unsafe. There were not locks on the doors in the building. I was putting a chair under the doorknob for the first time since I had been there, because I felt very unsafe with this man walking around the building like that. His behavior was very clearly not appropriate to the setting that we were in, right? And he was harming people with this behavior as much as he wanted to act like, what am I don't know, I just have to enforce the rules, I'm just happy, shut up. So anyways, one of the staff members kind of low-key was like, would you like a copy of the complaint procedures? And I was like, yes, I would. And so she gave me a copy of the complaint procedures to use if one had a complaint. And I, of course, used them. And then I took them And I copied them. I reworked them so they would be easier for people who were not used to formal, official corporate, whatever you call it, stuff to figure out how to navigate. I provided sample scripts using this behavior of the security guard, who, of course, I just said as an example, if there were a security guard behaving in said manner, and provided an example of said manner, which the security guard engaged in. This would be how you could explain the issue. Like, I gave some tips on building narrative. So that people could understand what the issue was and see, what they should be looking at. I told them, this is how long you should expect to wait for a reply. Here's what you do for voicemail. If you don't want to talk to the person, leave voicemail after hours. If they don't respond back, here's how you escalate. And again, here's how long you wait. If they say that they're going to do something, this is how long you should ask them what the time frame is, so and then once that time frame passes, then you can follow up. And so I just gave them really the down and dirty guide to being a Karen, and using the system to attempt to have your grievances redressed. So I did that. I printed them off on their computers, and then I went down to the front desk and I asked to use their staplers, and I proceeded to staple all of the copies together in front of them, and then I passed them out. I left them laying about in lunch areas and the front office, just made sure that people had access to this information. And then there was one more incident in which I was, again, outside of technically the zone. And by that point, he actually was training someone. And I asked, what is your name? Because, literally, this man is patrolling a building that I'm living in. I don't know his name. I don't even have a first name to call him. And he refused to give me his name. But I did have the name of his company on his shirt. So I looked at their website the next day. I figured out who was most likely to be his supervisor, covering the area that we were in, and who would be the person who would be assigning these roles, or at least over that process. And I called and I explained that I was having, I was a resident at a location that one of their employees was hired to be a security guard at, and expressed my concerns about this employee. And then he was gone. So that one actually took a lot of work. That's the problem with the terrible people, is it's actually very, very energy intensive to enact consequences for them as part of how they get away with things. They just make it so difficult that who has time and energy? But I was dealing with such a horrible situation that I had so much excess hostility that I needed to divert into something useful. And so if somebody horrible showed up in my path who was using a position of power to harm vulnerable people, or in a way that harmed vulnerable people, well, sometimes you just found a way to take care of your hostility. So that was one of the things I did. I have multiple stories like these. I'll probably share them. So that's what I did. That's how I got a security guard fired. I did pay a price for it later, but that's okay. That's okay. It all works out in the end. He was not appropriate. Those people were so vulnerable, and the staff of that shelter were the upper level people, were looking out for interest other than the well-being and recovery of the residents there, shall we say. So there you go. There's my story. Such is the world we live in. Head over to TikTok. I'm sharing stuff there. Go to my website, The Upside Down World. Buy merchandise. It is Christmas. Also, my friend Raju still needs $80 for blankets for widows in Bangalore, India. These are some of the most vulnerable human beings on the planet. It makes a real difference, and your $80 can go a long way there. So if that is something that you feel called to do, go to my website, theupsidedownworld.com, and go to the support page. There are instructions for making donations. Just mark it with Raju and I will get it right to him. All right, everyone. I may talk with you later or not. Depends how the wind blows. Love you all. Bye.